Hi everyone, welcome to Where Machine Learning Meets Social, #ThinkYouKnowMe. My name is Verhoeven, and I'm a Senior Solution Developer at Hedgehog and also Sitecore Technology MVP for 2018. So what is the goal of this talk? We all use and utilize the Sitecore platform, and when it comes to personalization, we do know that there is no platform who can match Sitecore capabilities. But there is also one problem with the personalization. It is human-imposed. All these rules are man-made. There is someone, a marketeer or an analyst, who defines these personalization rules based on the data from the business. So what we're normally doing is we're trying to match our users to fit into a certain pattern. We're trying to fit them based on our needs and what do we want to gain from them. But there is a little problem with this. By imposing these kind of rules, we're missing out on outliers. And instead of learning from the users, we're actually telling them what to expect from them. And we also do know that Sitecore is absolutely capable dynamically to change the content. But what if we would be able to do better? What if we can be better? So the idea behind this talk was to try to see how we can utilize the machine learning to help us overcome this process. So what is that we have? We have an online bookstore which is called Sitecore. It is built on SXA storefront and it is a commerce website. So we have a user that comes to the website, it browses products, it selects books, purchases them, and does the checkout. So far, everything that any commerce site has. But as we all know, the purpose of all commerce sites is to deliver the products to its consumers as fast as possible. So how can we actually get all these recommendations to the users who come the first time when we do not actually have their interactions? But there is one thing that we have on this website, and that is a social login. So we wanted to see how we can actually utilize the social login and the Twitter profile to match the user's personalities and needs to be able to recommend a book. In order to do that, we need to understand what is that Twitter can offer to us. Now, I spoke with several marketeers, and all of them came with the same conclusion. Some data is more important, some data is less important, but they all came to agreement that this is what we can get from Twitter. And pretty much this is what the Twitter profile card can give it to us. So what is that we have? If you look at the Twitter handle, the name and avatar, we need to ask ourselves an important question. Can this help us recommend a book? And the truth is, it cannot. The Twitter handle can be fake. The name can also be fake. An avatar, a lot of people have puppies and kittens, so it's not really going to help us to recommend a book. Then we come to the age. Now this is a really tricky one, because even if we impose certain rules on the age, we're going to miss out on certain people, and it's also a very biased category. For example, I'm permanently 28, and I have a yearly subscription of Donald Duck magazine which arrives every week to my doorstep. Do I look like someone who reads Donald Duck? No, I don't, but I actually do that. What about location? If you look at the websites who are serving their consumers worldwide, it doesn't actually make sense to serve content based on the location. And the reason is, just because I'm based in the Netherlands, that does not mean that I do not have same wishes and desires as consumers in the United States. So why do I have to be limited on just what is shown in the Netherlands? Also, we all travel. I'm not going to stop my online shopping just because I'm somewhere else. That journey continues. And even if it's not a worldwide website, it doesn't also make sense just to localize it based on the city. The next one we have is a description. Now, Twitter description is a very short info. You're not going to gain much from it. It's very descriptive, and very frequently it's also not available. And then we come to the interesting ones, keywords and hashtags. Now, this looks like a very obvious choice, something to pick, but let's think a bit about it. Are people really going to tweet, "Oh, I'm so interested to buy hashtag, I really need this book"? We're not going to tweet about it unless we're buying Tesla or something similar. So what is then left to us to do? Why don't we take a different approach? What do we do in real life? We talk, we socialize, we communicate, we interact. So why don't we apply the same principles as we do in real life on social networks? To do that, we're going to split this talk in two stages. So the stage 1 is the data collection and transformation, and the stage 2 is book recommendation by machine learning. So, what are we going to do in data collection and transformation? We need to define what data we want to collect. People have a tendency to think the more the merrier, the more the data, the better, but that's not really the case. First, you're going to jeopardize the privacy issues if you do not have approval from your end users. And do you really need all that data to actually recommend something? And there is one big advantage with Sitecore. The data that we have is not polluted. All the data that we have in our database comes from our users. It comes from our website. We do not have to worry about the robots. And you need to think of the first stage is the introduction and requirement for the stage 2, for the machine learning. So if your data is bad, your machine learning is going to be bad. Simply said, garbage in, garbage out. So it's time to introduce our first tool, IBM Personality Insights. Since we already said that we're not going to use anything the Twitter profile can give it to us, let's try to use the Personality Insights instead. So what is Personality Insights? It is a service which actually analyzes your Twitter feed and returns your personality as an input. And it actually creates your personality based on 3 models: your needs, your values, and the big 5. The needs is what you need as a consumer. The values is what you value in your life, who you are as a person. And the big 5 is your emotional aspect, who you are as a person. So how does that look in our system at the moment? We have a user who comes with their Twitter, and the moment they log in, the IBM Personality Insights kicks in. Of course, we need to ask users for the permission. The Twitter feed is being analyzed, and we get a JSON response back. A colleague of mine was very kind to offer me to show publicly her data, and this is how her data looks. It's the entire big 5 personality, who she is as a person, but in percentages. But when we actually see the user coming to our website, this is how the user is going to look. We are not going to know their Twitter handle. We're just going to get JSON with all of this data aggregated with percentages. So how does it look? We log in with our Twitter, the Personality Insights kicks in, but we do not save that data immediately. When we actually select which books are we purchasing when we are doing the checkout, that is the moment where we are going to save this data to XConnect. Why not before? Because just Personality Insights alone is not going to be enough for us to recommend a book. We want to see where all these personalities are overlapping with the books that they have acquired to be able to predict and create correct machine learning model. So what do you need to do in XConnect? You need to create a custom outcome and nothing else. So you're going to create a custom outcome which has a book ID. It has good, which is also book. And the reason why we need something like this is because later on we want to create a rendering where we're going to display all these books. And we're also storing the attributes from the Personality Insights. Now you can also store all of this as just a JSON, but the reason why we haven't done something like this is we wanted to be able to use all these attributes, all these variables, in the later stage when we actually want to do the personalization. So where we are currently in the system, we logged in, we purchased the book, we have the combination of the books and Personality Insights, and the data is now in the database. So we're almost ready to trigger our machine learning. But there is one catch. machine learning does not like structured data. It actually wants, in most of the cases, the data to be exported in the CSV file. Now, we're all here developers, and we do know how to transform the data. But if you haven't planned all those transformations properly, you may have difficulties in collecting and aggregating all the data. But there is actually a magical solution for that. And it's called projection framework. It comes as part of the Sitecore cortex. And it's actually going to help us to do these transformations, and we do not need to worry about that. All these transformations are going to be stored as blob storage, and the only thing which is left is to export it to the CSV. So this is how the projection framework looks like. Here, we're going to project interactions. The book projection means that we are actually going to populate the table with the name book projection. We are expanding the purchase book outcome, which is actually from the XConnect. The key is the outcome ID, so we're going to get all outcomes in input. And all the other attributes are actually the attributes which are going to allow us the extraction of the data for the outcome, which comes from the XConnect. And this is how our data looks like. This is our exported CSV file. The first column, it is the ID, which comes from the projection framework. Then we have the book GUID and all the attributes from Personality Insights. But there is also something very specific about this data. If you look at it, you cannot associate any person with it. It's just a bunch of percentages. There is no possibility to map this data with someone actually on Twitter. And also, the more we tweet, our personality evolves. Today, we may be tweeting about Sitecore. The next day, somebody is maybe getting married and we're all congratulating. But the point is, the data constantly changes. And who you are today is not the same who you will be next year. And this is very well because of the GDPR. So where we are in the system, we are finally ready to trigger the machine learning. We have collected and aggregated all our data. We have used Personality Insights in the purchase books. We stored everything in XConnect. We used the projection framework. We exported to the CSV file. And now we're ready for the machine learning to start. So up until now, we were only gathering the data and preparing them for what we want to utilize machine learning for. But Sitecore does not prevent you with what you want to do when it comes to the machine learning. You can connect to any of the services. You can use the Microsoft Azure, Google, and so on. But in this case, since we started with IBM, we're going to continue with IBM. So this is the next tool that is going to be introduced. And it's called Watson Studio. Watson Studio is artificial intelligence environment, and it's a combination of the tools. It does not only have machine learning, it also has the visual recognition, the natural language processing, chatbots, and so on. So when you log in to the Watson Studio, when you want to create a new model, this is the screen that you're going to get. You will notice that you will have the machine learning service and Spark service. These are the services that are necessary for Watson to run. And these are all cloud-based services, so even if you do not have them, you're just going to get a little create button and Watson is going to provision all of that for you. Afterwards, you need to define your model. You need to give it a name, and you need to add a description. And this is especially important if you're considering having more machine learning models, and if your team for the machine learning, all the data analysts is big. Afterwards, you need to select the model type. In this case, we're going to use the model builder, but also if you have previously saved the model, you can import it from file, and you also have the option to use it from the sample, but that means that you're already going to use something that IBM created for you, which in this case, we do not want that. And then, because we already have our own data set, which is pre-prepared with projection framework and with Sitecore, we're going to select the manual approach. And this is the part where we get asked to provide our data set. Here, we're going to upload the assets that we have created in the combination from XConnect and the projection framework. So this is our CSV file. Of course, you can also create a worker which is going to do this for you, but in this case, we're going to do that manually. So we're going to select the new data set, and we're going to get the sidebar to upload our CSV file. Once we're done with that, we get the configurational screen. So we have the column value to predict. So this is what we actually want to gain. The feature columns presents what are all our inputs. To understand that a bit better, you need to know how do you want to utilize your data. So our training data is the combination of your personality on Twitter and the books that you have purchased. Your feature columns, your input, is going to be our personality insights. The value predict, our final outcome, is going to be the list of recommended books, which is something that will come from Watson. But notice one thing. Once we have selected what we want to predict in the features that we are going to select, Watson has automatically defined a technique for us. We could have chosen any of these techniques, but based on the data we have, Watson has already given us the best match, what we should use. And also, at the same time, Watson has split our data into 3 fragments: training data, the testing data, and the holdout. You always want to split your data, so one part you're going to use for training, and the other part you're actually going to use to evaluate the data that has been trained. And the holdout, that is something that you don't want to use randomly picked, specifically in the case if you have null values. Afterwards, you need to add the estimators. And Watson has also predefined this for us. We can pick between decision tree, the random forest, and naive Bayes. For our example, we have used naive Bayes algorithm, but nothing stops you to utilize all these 3, because once you're done with it, Watson is going to tell you what your best machine learning model is. It's going to tell you automatically which one to pick. Once you're done with it, you're able to deploy it and manually to test it. So on the left side, you're going to be able to enter all the personality insight inputs. So what we can see here is that there is someone who is very excited as a person, very open, and quite curious. And on the right side is going to show us which book is the best match for that particular person. At the same time, it's very developer-friendly. Because it is a web service, we have code snippets in many languages, unfortunately not .NET, but this is more than enough to help us to actually connect to the Watson. So how does our system look? We're still keeping everything from stage 1 because we do want to continue to collect the data, but at the same time, when we have our machine learning model deployed, there is one more thing happening in parallel. When the user comes in, only if the book is purchased, we're going to store the data, but if not, we're going to send his or her personality to Watson, and as a result back, we're actually going to get the list of recommended books. And this is how our Sitecore rendering looks like. All of this came from the machine learning. We have not used yet any Sitecore personalization for this. We have utilized Sitecore to define our data and to collect our data. So we have done a lot of things here. We have used XConnect, we have used the projection framework, we have utilized SXA, we use Commerce, we introduced IBM Watson, we have introduced IBM Personality Insights. And all of that just to recommend a book sounds like a bit of an overkill, doesn't it? But there is a reason why we have done all of this. Because with all of this, we're able to leverage Sitecore to its maximum capacity for what it's actually made for, and that is the end user experience. What we get from this is the insight into the data. Here, we actually can learn from the users. We cannot introduce any personal bias from the business. This is also very helpful because all the marketeers and the data scientists can very easily either connect to the SQL table that we have or to the CSV file that we have exported and created. This is going to give them the full insight what people are actually doing with their products, what they're trying to sell them. We can also see if some product is not performing well. So if the book is not being sold, we can actually promote it, but we don't want to promote it to everyone. And that is where Sitecore personalization comes in. Up until now, we haven't used it, but nothing stops us to use it as we always did. We can use it for the campaigns, we could use it from the promotions. But we can do also more things. Instead of serving content, the list of recommended books just like this, why not serve something like this? So we're actually providing a little synopsis from each of the books, but if you pay a bit more attention, you will notice the tags that we have below actually come from personality of the users. So people who are adventurous, curious, are very highly likely to buy Harry Potter. And also the first sentence on this slide. This first sentence completely corresponds to tags that we have, and subconsciously we're trying basically to trigger the user to associate themselves with the content that is displayed to them. We can also do even more. Let's say that we are launching a sci-fi edition, that we have a certain category, and we have a huge list of the sci-fi books. We can even expand the data that we have even more. We can do profiles per category. So instead of just aggregating what kind of books we want to recommend, we can create profiles per categories. We can also do even more. If the people at one moment allow us to associate the data with them, if they do not want to be anonymous anymore, we can expand this even onto the EXM level. We can actually use email action measurements to plan our campaigns. So once when we trigger the campaign, we send out an email and someone clicks on the link, we can actually measure how much time has spent since that person has clicked and see what type of personalities actually click on link. So if someone is very ambitious, they're not going to click on the links if you send them every 2 weeks an email. But you will be able to plan more accordingly your email sending. So in this example, we have seen only one small part what the machine learning can do, and it can create completely different experience for the users. With the release of XConnect quite some time ago, Sitecore has given us the capabilities to connect and integrate all sorts of data. SXA has also arrived several years ago, and it gave us the ability to actually create very fastly fantastic websites. With the arrival of Cortex, the future is already here, and the Sitecore platform is your playground. With all these tools that you have, do you still think that you know your users? Thank you.